The election comes amid increased tensions, as we've all seen throughout the international media, with the West in particular, and the official reaction to Putin's victory has been muted so far, but the media have already made their point clear. Our Europe correspondent, Peter Oliver, joins us with reaction from that area. Peter, have you heard anything? Have the EU heavyweights had anything to say on the outcome yet?
Very quiet so far in terms of official reaction when it comes to where I'm talking to you from here in Berlin. We're yet to hear anything from Angela Merkel or from one of her spokespeople. We have heard from the opposition party Alternative for Germany. They congratulated Vladimir Putin on another term as Russian president, saying that they wanted to work with Russia to get rid of sanctions imposed on Moscow that, as they see it, actually harm German interests in business. When it comes to the relationship between Germany and Russia, it's strained at the moment over those international tensions that have arisen following the attempted murder of Mr. Skripal and his daughter in London. However, the personal relationship between Vladimir Putin and Angela Merkel appears quite strong. They are, of course, two of the longest-serving world leaders on the stage at the moment. And what we found out last week was that every now and again, the Chancellor sends a few bottles of Vladimir Putin's favourite German beer over to the Kremlin to him, and she receives a type of Russian smoked fish that she has taken a liking to. When it comes to press reactions, though, here in Germany, well, it's pretty much as you would expect. We actually saw the main tabloid Bild newspaper come out on Sunday before a vote had been cast, even congratulating Vladimir Putin on a victory. That was more of a barbed congratulation than anything genuine. The Skripal case, though, is dominating all of the talk about the Russian elections here in Germany and also elsewhere as well. We've, in fact, heard some newspapers saying that the Skripal investigation and all of the outpourings that's come from that have actually helped Vladimir Putin. That was confirmed, in fact, on our show during the election broadcast by one of the spokespeople for Vladimir Putin's campaign, saying, in fact, all of the media attention outside of Russia had spurred people along to actually get out and vote. But when it comes to the United Kingdom and the reaction there, well, we've seen newspapers putting out their articles about there being no opposition in Russia against Vladimir Putin. Also that vote tampering had taken place. And we've seen cartoons, one in particular in The Guardian, depicting Russian President Mr. Putin as a spider sitting atop the world. It's very similar, in fact, to a Nazi propaganda poster that was published way back in the 30s that talked about the dangers of global Bolshevism, and they've compared the two there. Really, it's negative where you would expect it to be negative, the coverage of Vladimir Putin's re-election. We're still waiting for reaction from the big hitters here in Europe. No word from the Élysée Paris in France. As I say, no word from the Chancellor here in Germany either. But we'll be keeping an eye on that, and as soon as anything does come out, of course, I'll bring it to you right here.
I'm sure you will, Peter. Thanks very much for the overview on what's happening over in Europe.
Yeah, it's still, of course, very early for them, isn't it? It's only about 9, 10 o'clock in Central and Western Europe, and so as soon as they do start talking about it, you'll hear about it right here. Across the Atlantic, though, some American politicians have been far more outspoken about Vladimir Putin's re-election. His longtime critic, Republican Senator John McCain, accusing him of trying to artificially inflate the turnout. And top Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff slamming Putin for eliminating his opponents.
There's also been reaction from NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, who's living in exile in Russia. He drew attention to the alleged voter fraud cases. Well, joining us live now is Andrei Bystritsky, journalist and media communications expert. Thanks very much for coming onto the programme here on this beautiful day here in the centre of Moscow. Now, do you think the latest criticism of Russia triggered by the Skripal poisoning that we've seen play out hugely in the international media impacted on attitudes, their attitudes either home or abroad in the way that they were going to vote?
First of all, from my point of view, if we speak about Skripal story, Skripal case, it's too detective. No one can be such kind of suspension. It's a serious question. I think that Unfortunately, Skripal case became a part of general campaign against Russia. We see a lot of prejudgment, a lot of bias, and it's a problem of today total world political environment. It's not a problem only Russian-West relations. It's a general world problem. It's not only a problem with relations between Russia and the West or in the United States. It's a problem in relations between, for instance, China and the United States. Of course, not the same style, not totally the same style, but too many, maybe too hostile in general political environment. Of course, we need to change the situation, and it's probably the main task for leading politicians to the world.
Yeah, it sounds like a big task, though. What do you make of the reaction from the US senators? Because the American political reaction in any Russian election is always one that's slightly dismissive of how it's gone about, who's won, the results right the way through. Do you get any sense that the 2018 presidential election has had a better or worse reaction than they've had before?
The problem is that it's typical and very shallow reaction on Russian political events. Unfortunately, it's a sort of political myopia, if you want, because it's a problem. A lot of politicians prefer to see own illusions and to avoid understanding of real political situation in Russia. You know, everybody knows, it's absolutely clear. Russian elections was pretty justice, very open, and no serious doubts in the results. The problem is that a lot of US politicians don't see a real political process in Russia. It's very important processes. We see how now we can see in Russia creation of new political nations, of new society. It's very interesting and complicated process.
So what do you think that the attacks then against the way elections are held in Russia are so vicious? We've just been through the numbers with the Central Election Commission, hundreds of thousands of observers, something like 7 to 8 observers per polling station, and webcams, so people at home can see what's going on. So why do you think the attacks remain so vitriolic against how Russia conducts its elections?
Honestly, I don't understand such kind of political reactions. I can repeat, it's a blind reaction. Turnout in the Russian election was excellent and brave. After Crimea, we see a lot of enthusiasm in Russian society. We can see a process of consolidation of Russian society, of Russian citizens, and. Now, from my point of view, the best position is to try to restore our relations, to find new solutions for our common future. Our main problem, not in past time, but our main problem in future.
Well, they've certainly got to work with Mr. Putin for the next 6 years, so they're going to have to pull something out of the bag.
Exactly.
Okay, Andrei Brustitsi, thanks very much for joining us on RTV. All Thoughts this Monday morning. Thanks for your time.